here with Despina Xenakis for the Yiayia Pappou Series. So Despina, tell me, how is your youth different than your grandchildren's?
Ooh, very different, honey.
Yeah.
In my time, uh, life was very controlled by my parents
Mm-hmm.
to the point that it was over control. I wasn't allowed to go to college, although I graduated second in my class. Uh, we lived mostly in apartments. One of them was Wally Avenue, which was up in the Hill District. Then gradually we moved to better kind of um apartments till the war broke out. And then my dad had a restaurant, which then increased our income that we bought a house in Brookline, but that wasn't until I was 9 years old. We had streetcars then, where now most of the kids, even in high school, even have cars of their own. Um, they had much more freedom about going out on dates. My parents were very, very old-fashioned. Didn't adapt when they came to America uh, into the American thoughts and ideas of raising children. So I was very deprived even of a college education. It was stay at home till a Greek boy comes, and preferably it would be a Icarian boy. And only then, if he asks your hand in marriage, and we agreed that was the only way you can get out of the house.
What is your favorite part of being a Garioti?
Gee, I feel proud. But that's the upbringing. That attitude was good before my generation because it was just developing. At my generation, it was always already developed, and we got into it too, all the children. But as the next generation came and the mixed marriages, there is less interest in the cariotico. But to me, it's like belonging to save the stories of your heritage, which makes you proud. And I think it has done a lot of good to the families that stuck with the Icarian society because we help one another. We stay in that group and we encourage one another. We love going to the Icarian Hall and meeting friends that are through the generations. When I go to the Icarian Hall every month, almost, I see friends of my age, my friends, their children, and then their children's children. So it goes down pretty well into the third generation when we get together. And I was very active in the Icarian club. When I got married at 18 years old, the first thing I did, I became a member. Well, I am a member with the Icarian club since 1950. So that makes me pretty old. And then I was always the secretary at the beginning to the chapter. But at one time, I worked for the foundation when it developed, and I was the secretary for 10 years for the foundation. So I've been pretty well involved.
If you could do it all again, would you do anything different?
I would demand to get an education because I was fit for one. I could have even gone every Saturday to get at Mellon College.
Carnegie Mellon?
Carnegie Mellon College.
Yeah.
It was the Pittsburgh Board of Education was awarding every year 4 students to go free every Saturday of the school year. And I wasn't allowed because it was improper in their way of thinking about going on that streetcar by myself to go to Oakland. Well, there is the difference, very big difference, of how we now press our children to go after whatever they're capable of. And their opportunities have gotten so much more than staying at home and waiting for a groom to come to the door.
What advice would you give your grandchildren?
You know, I had 5 children. In 2 years' time, all 4 of them left me, and only the one was left at home, Teddy. So as they were leaving the house to go on their own, I told them, I don't care where you go to make your life. I don't care what religion you're going to follow as long as it's a Christian. I don't care even if you don't go to church if it's not nearby. But I do care. And you must, in order to be a good person, follow the 10 Commandments. And that's the only advice I can give my children and my grandchildren. If you follow the 10 Commandments, you will be a good person. And that's what I want to see in all of them.
How long have you lived in Pittsburgh, and what have you seen change the most over time?
I have lived in Pittsburgh since I was born, and that goes back to 1932. What has been the change? Well, when I could remember far back, I'm good at that since I was 2 years old. We first lived on top of a garage because naturally the commoner at that time was paid very poorly. And it usually was renting in very unusual places at times. Ours was a garage. From the garage, we moved to Wally Avenue in a complex that the first floor was empty, but the second floor we lived, the third floor, there were Pappas and another Greek family, Cretan, both of them. And what was different about Wally Avenue, which was very unique in that time, the jazz players at that time, the black famous players, musical players, had nightclubs on Wally Avenue. And the stars from Hollywood would come all the way to Pittsburgh and go to the Wally Avenue famous clubs. And one of them was Lena Horne. I don't know if you kids remember her, but she was a famous mulatto. And you know, she wasn't allowed to go and stay in the hotels because she was black.
Wow.
Although at that time, I think she had a white husband, but they still wouldn't accept her.
Wow.
So anyway, after a while, naturally that died down, but the whole Wally Avenue was a nationality place. There was the gypsies at one end, there was the Italians all together with their grocery stores, there was the Jewish all together with their grocery stores, you know, and they used to have chicken places that were alive. And when you wanted a chicken, you actually went to the store, told the rabbi, we want this chicken. He would say a prayer, kill it, and then they'll clean it, and that's how we bought chickens in those days.
Wow.
Then there was the carts that would come down with the horses drawing them. And some of them had the vegetables, others had fruit, whatever it was that they bought to food to sell, in the order of mostly fruits and vegetables. There was the Iceman, and you could hear them yelling, ice, ice. Well, in those days we had refrigerators that had a metal area that you put the ice in, and that's how we kept our food cold. Well, you would yell from the window, you know, give me 25 pounds or 10 pounds of ice, and they would come and have it on their shoulders, the black guys, and put it in your refrigerator. Then there was a Greek group, which we belonged to. And that was a lot of fun. What I remember was that every afternoon, my mother took us to the one family upstairs, and the other Greek family would come over, and we would have, or the ladies would have, the Turkish coffee. And the one lady would always say their futures from the Turkish coffee. And I was a little girl, and I would sit on a little stool and listening to them. So it was very different. Across the street was a Jewish grocery store, but no meats, no chickens. It was just the packaged food or the loose food. At the Italian stores, they had those barrels, those like a wine barrel, and it was filled with snails. And my dad used to go there and buy a bag full of snails, live. And he would bring them home, and my sister and I would play with the snails running up and down our arms. And then we would cook them and eat them. And that was a different world.
Did you ever go to any of the jazz clubs or listen to any of the music nights?
I was never allowed.
No, okay.
When I got married, there was one club left. And somehow or other, my husband took me when we were in the first year of marriage, which at that time we were staying with my parents. Because my mother made my husband swear on the Bible that he wasn't going to take me to New York, but that he will swear that he would keep living with them while he was married with me, with my parents. That was pretty rough. I was mad as hell. Excuse me. Because I was thinking I was going to New York. Anyway, things are very different now, that's for sure. Okay. Well, at 17, I was engaged to my husband, Tony Xenakis. And naturally, my school, my classmates, the teachers knew it. And they knew that I was going to get married as soon as I finished high school. And the nuns were disagreeing with me, and they gave me this advice. You don't know him. You haven't gone out with him. You're just doing it out of a whim. And I says, yeah, but I love him. He says, how could you love him when you have not been at all involved with him, because you were never allowed to go out and be alone? Well, when I married and I had 2 daughters, I sent them both to the same Catholic girls' school. And when they first saw me there, bringing my daughter Kathy, they says, we want to ask you, did it ever work out? And I says, well, I'm still married to him, and I have quite a few children. At that time, I had 4 kids. And they said, well, that's a shock, because the girls that married along the time that you got married, they were all dating their husbands, and they all ended up in divorces. So whether that was better that I didn't follow their advice, but that was the only advice I got. Other than saying, you're not allowed to get married to anybody unless it's a cariote, you're not allowed to go out with him. But it worked out. Been fulfilled and blessed through my years here on earth.